You guys have been asking for it, so in this video, I'm coming at you with a review of the Traxxas UDR. I've been working with this platform for the past 7 months, and today I'm going to share my thoughts and experiences with the truck to help you decide if it's worth buying. Diving right into performance, off the bat, the UDR is known for its realistic suspension and scale appearance. That's exactly why I purchased mine in the first place, and it did not disappoint. Traxxas nailed the suspension setup on this platform. It's extremely smooth, responsive, and honestly just mesmerizing to watch as it floats over bumps and reacts to different terrain. Suspension-wise, there's nothing that performs quite like this vehicle from my experience. Of course, you have other trucks like the Losi Baja Ray and Super Baja Ray that are laid out and set up pretty similar to this UDR, but in my opinion, the suspension isn't quite as good on those trucks out of the box from what I've seen. I bought my UDR for slow-mo videos, so with that said, I've really been enjoying this truck and it's worked well for what I've been using it for. Beyond the suspension, the truck is pretty quick. I've only been running mine on 6S LiPo. I use two Gens Ace 5000 milliamp 60C packs that fit really well, and in order to run those, I had to change plugs on the ESC and mount them in a special 3D printed adapter. And that's one thing I actually don't like about this platform. Having these stock Traxxas plugs basically built into the chassis makes it pretty inconvenient if you want to run different battery connectors. I strapped a GPS to my UDR at one point and was able to get around 44 miles per hour out of it as a top speed. Now you have to consider that it wasn't brand new or completely stock for that speed run, and it did take place in 27-degree Fahrenheit weather, but still, that's fairly quick for an off-road truck with a solid rear axle. The truck steers decent, but it's not the most forgiving. You have to be careful not to turn too sharp because depending on the level of traction you have, the truck will either traction roll or spin out pretty easily, especially at higher speeds and also in grass. You also have to stay in the throttle at high speeds on rough terrain or the truck will tend to nose over and crash end over end. One of my favorite things about the UDR is the fact that it can slide around and actually break the tires loose on dry pavement, which is something that I was never able to do with my old Losi Baja Ray. I think a lot of that has to deal with the tire compound, tread design, and locked rear diff. There are a few other options available when it comes to tires that will give you more traction, but I actually plan to stick with these stock BF Goodrich tires because I think they look really scale and I enjoy having the ability to slide this truck around with them. What I've found is if you use the Traxxas UDR for its intended purpose, the truck is pretty durable overall. Oftentimes when I hear people complain about the durability of the UDR, it's because they aren't using the truck for its intended purpose. They're attempting to send it off of big ramps and bash it hard. They're not only treating it like a Traxxas sledge or Arrma Kraton, but they're expecting it to hold up like one too. Just because it can go 50 miles per hour, that doesn't necessarily mean you should be launching it off of a big ramp at 50 miles per hour. So if you're looking at purchasing a UDR, just keep in mind that the truck was designed for scale driving. When you take all of that into account, I haven't had much brake on the truck. It's been through a lot of high-speed crashes, rollovers, and failed landings. The part that I've had break the most is the front sway bar and only the front sway bar. I've yet to have a rear sway bar snap. Besides that, I think around 4 of the 6 stock tires came unglued from the wheels, but after re-gluing them, I haven't had any issues. Like I mentioned earlier, this truck is a lot of fun to drift and slide around with. If you do it on pavement though, be prepared to burn through tires. Especially since the rear diff is locked, you'll notice that the tires will definitely start to show some wear if you're frequently driving on road with it. I did have one plastic half shaft break in the drivetrain, and that was the one going from the front differential to the transmission in the center of the truck. That was a little tricky to replace, but I decided to stick with the stock plastic setup to avoid breaking anything deeper in the drivetrain that would make it even less convenient to fix. During the speed test I did with the truck, I hit a patch of snow and slid it sideways into a curb at around 30 miles per hour, I'm guessing, and that ended up cracking and bending a wheel, as well as bending an upper suspension link. Now that one really wasn't the truck's fault, that was more on my part due to bad driving. The last issue I had was one of the plastic brake calipers next to the wheel hexes snapped in half. I'm guessing that one of the wheels must have just flexed during a crash and one of the supports on the inside of the wheel just tapped the caliper and snapped it right off. Those are just for looks and they're hidden behind the wheels anyway, so it's not a big deal. Most of the damage you're gonna find is on the body. Because of the roll cage, trophy truck body style, and closed closed wheel design. All of the important parts of this truck are pretty well protected, and the body takes most of the impact when you crash. The front fenders seem to be the weakest part of the body here on the UDR. That's where I have the most significant cracks, dents, and overall damage. There's also some noticeable wear in the areas just in front of and behind the Nerf bars on the sides of the truck. Then we also have some cracks on the very rear just underneath the taillights. Although some of the body mount holes have significant damage, the body still holds on just fine since there's 12 mounting points, which is nice. Keep an eye out for the rear trailing arms. Those tend to break, and then the stock plastic wheel hexes tend to strip. Although I haven't had either of those issues, I figured I'd just mention it because it seems like a lot of other UDR owners have. Besides that, everything else has been holding up well. The stock motor, ESC, and steering servo are still working, which is always good. Seems like a lot of people have a hit or miss experience with Traxxas electronics, so maybe I'm just lucky. When it comes to making changes on the UDR, like with all RCs, I always recommend waiting until you break parts before you decide to upgrade. Right out of the box, Traxxas recommends that you vent your tires and actually plug the stock vent holes inside your wheels to prevent sand and debris from getting trapped and throwing your tires off balance. It's interesting that they wouldn't make that change directly from the factory, but I ended up drilling some small holes in the tires and plugging up the wheels with electrical tape. The stock servo is quite slow, and a lot of people have had problems with them going bad. Like I said, I haven't had any issues with mine, but if you want to upgrade the truck before anything goes wrong, upgrading the steering servo is always a good improvement. If you start going through tires quickly, things can get pretty expensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to beadlock wheels so I can just reuse the wheels and swap tires whenever I need to. Working on the Traxxas UDR can get challenging at times. You have a lot of screws to work with. Since the truck is designed to look realistic, the electronics are all hidden and can be a little difficult to access, similar to most vehicles that have a roll cage. I haven't had to work on mine much, but I definitely would not recommend it as your first RC truck. If you do have one or are looking to get one, you're definitely going to want to invest in an electric screwdriver to make things a little easier. Cleaning this truck is also very difficult because of how detailed it is. There's a lot of different areas that dirt and debris can get into. Part support is obviously pretty solid because it's a Traxxas, but I noticed that there aren't many aftermarket body options, which was a little surprising. I hope you guys found this review helpful. If you did, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.